Okay, so today we're just going to do operations on fractions. What does operations on fractions mean? What does operations? When you're in math and you hear operations, you should think of 4 things automatically. Multiply. Yeah, it's the 4 operations. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. Today we're just going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions. So then tomorrow, you notice on the board, we'll talk about multiplying and dividing. And then I'll get the rest of the week's stuff up by tomorrow. Yes, you had a question.
For my test, did I miss on Friday?
You will take it today during your LS. Who do you have for LS?
I have you.
Oh my goodness, you do have me. You'll just take it with me 7th hour. Okay? You do have me. All right, so adding and subtracting fractions. Here we go. Step 1. Change one or both fractions so that they have a what? When you add or subtract fractions, they both must have a blank in order to add or subtract them. Common denominators. So write that down. So they must have a common denominator or the same denominator. Okay, step 2. Once they have a common denominator, you add or subtract what according to their signs? Oh, thank you. So you add or subtract the what according to their signs. So if I have this, no, if I have, I haven't written it yet. I was trying to find. I don't want to use that one. I lied. Hold on, let me get something else. If I have this, 3. So they have common denominators, right? So step 1, they have common denominators. I didn't have to worry about finding a common denominator. Step 2, add or subtract the what according to their signs. If they have a common denominator, what do I add or subtract? This top part, right? The numerators, yeah. So numerator. So once I add those numerators together, step 3, I keep the what the same? Denominator. So that denominator stays the same. Then the last step you're going to do, fractions suck. Why?
Because they suck. Reduce.
Reduce. We have to simplify them. Simplify, reduce. Same. Means the same. So looking here, 5/10. What can you simplify or reduce that by? What's 5 and... Yeah, they're both divisible by 5. Now fractions, whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So I'm going to divide the top by 5 and the bottom by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is? What's 5 divided by 5? You guys don't have to write this problem. 1. 10 divided by 5? 2. So, yeah, it'd equal out half. Okay. So those are the steps that... Oh, sorry, guys, if you didn't have that down. Those are the steps that you're going to have to follow in order to get your answers. Now, you guys, like I said, are lucky because you don't have to do all that extra work out on the paper. You guys have the fraction calculators. So this is going to be an easy breezy assignment for you because you guys are going to be able to just type it into your calculator and get the correct answer. However, I'm going to work it out longhand to make sure we get it all the same. For the sake of having good notes, show your work on how I'm getting it as well though. Okay? So the first one, we have 2/5 plus 1/5. First thing you need to look at, do they have a common denominator? Are the denominators the same? Brendan? Yeah. So then I move on. I can go ahead and add or subtract the numerators. Well, the operation says to add. So, Brendan, if I add my numerators, what do I end up with? Okay, so you took 2 plus 1 and you got 3. My next step says keep the denominators the same. Well, so if I'm going to keep the denominator the same, it's going to be what, Brendan? And then the final step. Simplify. Can 3/5 be reduced by 2, 3, or 5? No. So 3/5 is my final answer. So I really didn't have to do any extra work on that. But you know the examples are going to get harder as we go, right? Yeah. All right, so that's example number 1. Did everybody get it? Okay. Example number 2. What's different about this example compared to our previous example? Darius? Okay, so we're going to have to do extra work. The denominators are not the same. Now you guys can just type in your calculator and get the final answer. I don't have a calculator, so I can't do that. So 3/4. 3 and 4. Nope, that's multiplying and dividing. So I need to find a common denominator of 3 and 4. I do that by thinking of what is the least common multiple of 3 and 4. So least common multiple, if I count by 3s and then I count by 4s, what number do they share? So I'm just going to come up here and make a little list. So if I count by 3s, I'm going to have what? 3, 6, then what? 9, then 15, then. Okay, and if I count by 4s, what's my multiples of 4? Okay, let's stop there. Do they share a number? Yes. What number? What's the lowest number they share? 12. The reason why you want to use the lowest is because you don't have as much to reduce then. So 12. So my new denominator is going to be 12. So I'm going to come to the side of each of my fraction. I'm going to set it up like that. Well, if I'm changing my denominator, I also have to change my numerator. So you have to think 3 times what gets you to 12? 4. So whatever I multiply my bottom by, I multiply my top by. So what's 2 times 4? 8. So my new numerator is 8. So my new fraction is 8/12. So I'm done with that one. I don't need that anymore. I got a new fraction I'm working with. So now I come to my second fraction. My new denominator is 12, so I had to think 4 times what got me to 12? 3. So if I multiplied the bottom by 3, I have to multiply my numerator, my top by 3. So what's 1 times 3? 3. That is ugly. Can you see that over the... So there's my new fractions. Let me write it out so it's a little nicer. So I have 8/12 plus 3/12. Now do I have a common denominator? Yeah. So if I have a common denominator, I can now move on and do what? Add. So add your numerators and you get 11. Denominator stays the same as a... Then you ask yourself, can you simplify? Can you simplify by 2, 3, or 5? So 11/12 will be our final answer. What kind of number is 11?
What? It's an odd number.
It's an odd number.
What's it? Prime number?
Yeah, it's a prime number. Yeah, 11 can't be divided by anything besides 1 and 11 itself. So it's a prime number. So a prime number, if you see a prime number, you know more than likely you're not going to be able to reduce. Yeah. Unless it's 7/21. Why? What can you reduce by? By 7. You can't by 3. By 7. So I guess that's not always a good rule of thumb to play by, but it's one that you can kind of look at. All right. Everybody have number 1 down. Example 1. Okay. Moving on to example. Oh, sorry. That was example 2. Oh. Moving on to example number 3. Oh, my gosh. What is this? What do I do? I have 3 minus 1/12. 3 is a whole number. It's not a fraction. So if 3 is a whole number and it's not a fraction, what can I do to it to make it a fraction?
What you do, Pop? Put a 12 under it.
Can't put a 12 under it. Anytime I want to make a whole number a fraction, what number can I put under it? Yeah, just put a 1 under it. So it's going to be 3/1 minus 1/12. Now, I need to look at, are the denominators the same? No. So I now need to find a common denominator for 1 and 12. So what least common multiple will 1 and 12 share? Think about it. What's going to be the easiest denominator to get here? Well, you have 1, right? If you count by ones, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So if you're going to count by multiples of 12, the first number they're going to share is what? 12. So we're going to change this denominator here to a 12. So 1 times what equals 12? I don't know if so then we have to take the numerator. 3 times 12 equals?
36.
Okay. So now we have common denominator. So we're going to have to now subtract our numerators. So let me rewrite that. That looks horrible. 36 over 12 minus 1 over 12. Okay. So we have common denominators. So go ahead and subtract your numerators. So what's 36 minus 1?
35.
Over? Okay. Can you simplify this? Can you take and simplify it by 2?
No.
By 3?
No.
By 5?
No.
No. In your calculators, do me a favor. Type 3 minus 1/12. Use your calculators to type 3 minus 1/12.
Like, don't you press ABC or something?
Mm-hmm.
This is syntax.
3 minus 1/12. So you get this weird thing, right? You get 2. Okay? That basically means, that's saying 2 is going to be your whole number. That's just separating to show that there's a separation between this whole number and the fraction. So your calculator is going to give you an answer that looks like that, and it's just going to be written like that, 2 and 11/12. That's okay as an answer too. Fractions, the answers of fractions can be 3 different things. You can have where the numerator is larger than the denominator. What is that called when it's larger than the denominator? What type of fraction is that? When the top is bigger than the bottom. Okay, let's look at this. You have 1/12. This is a fraction, right? The top is smaller than the bottom. That's called a proper fraction. So when your top is smaller than your bottom, that's called a proper fraction. Then when you come down here and your top is bigger than your bottom, I call it top heavy. When it's top heavy, that's called an improper fraction. Sometimes you can take an improper fraction and you can change it to this, where you have a whole number and a fraction. That's called a mixed number. So this would be acceptable for an answer. So would this. They're both right. So let's say I have this mixed number and I want to change it into an improper fraction, or sorry, I have this improper fraction. I want to change it to a mixed number. I can do that. You don't have to write what I'm writing in the purple, okay? So if I have that 35 over 12, and I say you're not allowed to have improper fractions, you change it to a mixed number. You do that by dividing. You take the top divided by the bottom. Well, how many times can 12 go into 35? 2. So I'm left with, so the leftover number here is my new numerator. My denominator stays the same. So do I end up with the same answer? Yeah. So they're all the same things. So you have proper fractions, improper fractions, and mixed numbers. You really don't need to know all that information because your calculator will do that for you. But just in case we get down the road, especially when we get into graphing, you'll need to know that. Okay, questions on that one? Last one that we're going to do today. 3/8 minus 5/6. So 3/8 minus 5/6. What did you guys get? What did you guys get?
I get negative.
That's what I said, 2/2.
Yeah, I get. When I used the calculator, I got what Nick said. So let's stop and take a second. Let's do it longhand, real fast. Do I have common denominators?
No.
No. So I'm going to have to find the least common multiple of 8 and 6. So 8s. If I skip count by 8, what do I end up with? 8. Then what? 24. Then what?
Yeah, that's just not right there.
That's enough? Okay, so if I skip count by 6s, I get 6, 12, 18, then what?
24.
So the number they share, I'm going to write underneath it just because it was getting so bad looking. So 24, we're subtracting. Okay, 8 times what got me to 24? So then I have to take my tops. So 3 times 3 is? Okay, so then I go 6 times what got me to 24? So then I had to multiply my top numbers. 5 times 4 gets me to? Okay, can I take 9 minus 20?
No.
Because right now we're going to subtract our numerator. So ignore the fraction part. So what I can do, remember how we did integers last week a little bit? You're going to take the big number and subtract the small number. So what's 20 minus 9? 11. So then you have to look, which number is bigger, 9 or 20? What type of number is 20? A negative. So what type of number is that 11? A negative. And then my denominators stay the same. What's my denominator?
25.
So it's going to be negative 11 over 24. Couple things you need to know about your negative placement with fractions. So I have 11 over 24. You can either put your negative at the top like that, or you can put it in front of the fraction like that. You may not put a negative at the bottom of the fraction. That's not okay. Okay? And that's all we're going to do today. Any questions? All right, call it a day.